Hi, my name's Shane. I use she and her pronouns, and this is the very last session of a 10 session run of The Between, Jason Cordova's game of Monster Hunters in Victorian England. I just want to say this has been a super fun game for me, a definite highlight of my gaming this year. Very grateful to all of you, the players, all of you in the in the game, not all of you in the hordes watching online later. Although grateful to you as well. Um, and also to Jason Cordova, like the game is just so much fun. Um, this session and this whole run were organized through the Gauntlet gaming calendar. If you're not familiar, the Gauntlet organizes, plays, talks about a whole lot of role playing games, especially Indian story games. And if you'd like to find out more about the Gauntlet or come play a game with us, you can check out gauntlet-rpg.com. Just want to mention as well that we are using a set of safety tools. So if you need to check, our lines and veils are in the character keeper, and we're also using the X card and the open door if you need to use those at any time. That's all that I want to say. So I will ask. Oh, sorry, Jamie, were you going to ask something? Were you putting your hand up? No.
I,
Okay.
I have I have the little volume control here, so
Oh, yeah. So I'll ask you all to introduce yourselves, you and your characters, just your and their names and pronouns, and anything that you want to tell us about yourself or your character. Um, Jim Fletcher. Gabe, can we start with you?
So I'm Gabe. I use he and him pronouns, and I am playing the liar Jim Fletcher, our American, who also uses he him pronouns. And I think Mr. Fletcher is very ready to handle this Pinkerton, and it's getting real tight, real low on masks. We'll see what happens.
Nice. Joel.
Yeah, hi, I'm Joel, he, him pronouns. I am playing Reeves, who uses she, her pronouns. She is the factotum in the employ of the esteemed Dr. Malik El Kabir. I have actually a fair amount of mass still, so I think Reeves will be like on the front line. She'll be taking some hits.
The best of you all. Jamie.
hi. So my name is Jamie. My pronouns are they, he, and I'm playing the completely unique Dr. Malik Al Kabir, also the Mother playbook. So while Jamie was very worried about it last time, Dr. Al Kabir was not. We were able to bring the child to life last time, except now I feel like a real mother taking care of my child. But yeah, so that's me.
Excellent. And Blake.
G'day, I'm Blake, he, him. Playing Helena, she, her, the somewhat ruthless mystic of the group.
Nice. So at the moment, you are investigating the mastermind threat. And Theodora Braithwaite has been mostly a shadowy presence in the background through the campaign, but now you know that her scheme, whatever it is close to fruition. She has escalated her attacks on you directly, most notably by destroying your home, blowing up Hargrave House. And you also have the strong sense that tonight is the night that everything will come to a head, where you will save the world, save London, or fail to save London to your cost. The apocalypse she has alluded to will come to pass. But you have a few leads that you can pursue. You believe that Theodora ordered the murder of Sir Richard Harlow because he had learned too much about her plans. And you know that she owns the Society Obscura and think that you could use their Watley camera to contact an otherworldly intelligence for aid. You also have the problem that Gabe mentioned, that the dogged and corrupt private eye Winslow Taggart is hot on your heels, looking to drag Jim back to America. But last time you figured out that Taggart is also involved in an arson scheme, hired a bunch of street urchins to burn down a Greyhound track, and you think that if you confront him with that information after dark, you could convince him to leave Jim and just skulk off back to the States. Um, I guess I note at this point that once you've resolved the threat by convincing him to leave, then you could just shoot him. So you can't resolve the threat by shooting him beforehand, but you could after.
I mean,
Should anyone have formed a grudge against Mr. Taggart?
feel like I could convince him to leave London in a box.
It's true. It's true. So in game time, it is late morning as we start. Dr. Malik, Miss Reeves, and the child all headed to the doctor's old home to rest and do some first aid, recuperate, things like that. And Helena and Jim Fletcher are at an opium den in Limehouse, unaware that Sally No Face is watching them. So I want to start with Dr. Malik and Miss Reeves, who are upstairs at the doctor's old house. You've had this sort of, tender moment together, or relatively tender. And the child notices something before either of you do. Turns its head. Sorry, I'm not sure what pronoun I should use for the child. Is the child a they, a she, a he, an it? What should I?
Oh, that's a good question. I think any pronouns absolutely work. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It
Thanks for asking.
intuitively feels right to me for the creature that you have cobbled together from the dead. So that's
beautifully
what
cobbled together.
Beautifully. So the child turns its head. It seems like it's heard something. And just a moment later, you both hear the door downstairs, the front door open and close, and somebody quietly step inside. What do you do?
I turn to Miss Reeves, who I had just finished tending to, and I say, perhaps it's best, Miss Reeves, if I see which uninvited guest has come into my home. But I think at the same time, I sort of I pick up a knife that's like nearby, like a scalpel, and I place it like in your hand, like this kind of, right. And I turn to the child and I say, stay with her, as I go downstairs to investigate.
The child looks visibly nervous as you leave, almost like a dog whose owner is stepping outside.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So as you head down the stairs, you'll detect the smell of opium smoke. And in the lounge area, you'll first see the back of a chair and the smoke rising from whoever is sitting in that chair, obviously smoking. What do you do?
I'll say, I apologize for being unable to do more to welcome you. But what do I owe the pleasure of this visit? I say as I'm very carefully trying to move into a position and see if there's anybody else, right?
So you don't think that you don't see anyone else, but the figure that comes into view as you round the chair is the man in the sun mask, and he offers the pipe to you, and he says, "Across the spheres, the gods and spirits turn their attention here. All the worlds watch you and your friends with rapt fascination. I could hardly miss out on a front row seat."
Well, my dear friend, I'm sure that I can give you quite the show if I put my mind to it. And so, aside from your voyeuristic interest in what is to happen, perhaps is there another form of aid that you could offer me? We have a very dangerous, well, I hesitate to say prey. It is more like a hunter that we are trying to best. And so I'm trying to see what kind of information I can get from him, if anything.
Yeah, so just a flag, from one of the rewards from an earlier mystery, if you ask him about other worlds, you get an extra clue when you roll the information move.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. And the way that I'll phrase it is perhaps from your unique perspective of seeing through a lens that is not available to me or my friends, there is wisdom that you could share with us.
All right, well, go ahead and roll the information move. I would think with presence, but if you want it to be something else, let me
No,
know.
I feel like presence makes sense. I'm going to see if the dice room likes me today, if I can get it to roll. All right. Wow, that is
Oh,
this dice room. I haven't used you in forever, and this is what you do to me. Anyway.
let's cut back. Let's go back to you in a minute. We'll see what happens for Reeves and Dr. Malik. Um, over at the Limehouse Opium Den, Helena and Jim Fletcher just passing a nice time together, very relaxed, quite high, laid out on some, sort of pile of cushions. And quite abruptly, Sally No Face has just squeezed in between you and is lying on the cushions right between the two of you, sort of nudging you both out of the way. She wears black rubber gloves. She's got a tattered surgical coat and a plain wooden mask that covers her face. You can see where the coat kind of has fallen open, that she is just loaded with scalpels and surgical tools. She has a hypodermic needle in her hand that she's just sort of like fidgeting with, just like I'm fidgeting with this pen while I talk to you. And she says, "Hello, Mr. Fletcher. Hello, Helena."
Where'd you come from?
Theodora sent me to kill you both, but I'd like to propose a deal.
Well, that sounds a lot better than being killed by you. So, what do you got to say?
She looks over to Helena and then back at Jim Fletcher, and she says, "Isn't he the most beautiful man you've ever seen? I must have it. Not the whole thing, just the top few layers of skin from your face."
Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
I can't say it won't hurt, but I won't leave a mark. You'll be fine.
I have an idea. You can say, X-card this if you want, Shane, but I was going to turn to her and say, it's been a long time, and it's been a long time, sister. I'm sure you've got more things to say to me than what this person looks like.
Wow.
And I'll show that cameo pendant, and it's actually her face in it.
That is amazing. I was unprepared for that. So the wooden mask pivots towards you, and she says, "You've always been like this. You would never let me have my own toys."
You did have a temper, and other people got hurt. We had to protect you from yourself.
But you know how skillful I am with a blade. You know I could do it. And I'm just going to paste into the chat the custom move for today: when you allow Sally No Face to remove your face. Just as an option.
Just in case.
Just in case you decide that's something that you'd like to do.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I just say, what you mentioned an alternative to killing us.
I take your friend's face, just a little, just the first few layers. It'll grow back. He'll look just like before, and then I'll go away. I'll go away and take care of Mother, and you never need to worry about me or her ever again.
Oh, Shane, this is the worst temptation ever.
So, what if you took mine, dear sister? You know you wanted to. Leave Mr. Fletcher alone, take mine. I always was prettier than you.
Wow. I think you can roll the day move to try and convince her.
Let's go. So this would
sorry.
be presence, I'm thinking. Sorry. Presence.
That makes sense. Well, wait. First of all, tell us what you're afraid will happen if you fail or lose your nerve.
She'll want to wrestle like Greco-Roman wrestle, and she always beat me in the past. She was much better at reading how people do. It's like an ego trip for her.
Right. Well, go ahead and roll, I would think, with presence, but if there's something else you're thinking of.
Yeah, presence sounds good. Oh, 10.
Nice. So you do it, what you intended, or hold steady. Describe what it looks like.
So she thinks of all the times she wanted to cut my face when she was, cutting other people's, and then maybe there's like a flashback of her cutting other people's faces, but she was envisioning cutting mine because she's been wanting to do it for so long. This is some dark shit. And yeah, but she's like, all right, Mr. Fletcher can wait, or something like that.
Hang on. So I just want you to be clear about the stakes, because it cut off the tail end of the custom move when I pasted it into the chat. So just bear with me for a second. I'm just going to make sure that you are clear on what the stakes are. So it's just that. Why is it? It keeps cutting off the end. It doesn't like such long comments, obviously. The point is that you, on a miss, you're going to gain a condition that you can never clear.
Yeah.
All right. And are you going to let her, or is this a ploy to distract her?
Well, I'm going to let her. If Jim does something, that's up to him.
All right.
Yeah, I guess quick question is, Blake, are you okay if I interrupt her?
Completely up to you. You do what you think your character would do.
Great.
All right. So Sally is now crawling over Helena's prone body. She looks at the hypodermic needle, flings it aside. It's no longer required. And she draws out a scalpel that just gleams, like the half light that filters in through the curtained windows just catches it perfectly. Jim Fletcher, what do you do?
So, somewhat, maybe not actually expecting Sally to go through with this, because we haven't had much interaction with Sally No Face yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the moment, like, the scalpel starts to touch Helena's face, and we just see like a little bit of blood. I'm shooting her.
All right.
Just going for it.
So you're trying to kill her? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What are you afraid will happen if you fail or lose your nerve?
I'm thinking, I'll be kind of shaky, and my shot will go wide, and now things are going to get real bad.
All right. On a 10 plus. Oh, sorry. Roll with an appropriate ability. So I guess composure.
Yeah. And I'm using my revolver that gives me advantage all the time. Clearly.
Yeah. Nice.
So that's an 11.
All right. So you do what you intended, or hold steady. We'll come back to this scene and see how it plays out. That's 11 on day move for Jim Fletcher. All right. So, Miss Reeves, you are upstairs with the child when the vampire launches itself in through the window. The vampire that is now working for Theodora, and it latches onto the child. Jerry, if you want to put a mask on from your miss before, that's an option. Otherwise, I'll ask. You will?
I can't let the child get hurt. Yeah, I'm gonna put on a mask. It is. Let's see. Oh, it's so. I'm so stressed. I'm gonna start talking Tagalog. It's so apt for the moment. Narrate a flashback to the time when the person you lost was slipping away from you. And I think in that moment when we see the glass breaking and the vampire coming through, there's a moment where in the flashback, uh, Malik has thrown down a glass onto the floor as it smashes, and Malik says, I don't know why you won't let me do what I can to save you. This is I can do it. Why won't you believe in me?" And I think we see the beloved say, "There are just some things that are not meant to be in me, and us growing old together is not one of them."
Nice. So that brings your information move up to a 7 to 9. So the vampire will not attack yet. Uh, you and you get 2 clues and a complication. So let's see. The man in the sun mask will tell you. Uh, Many in London have seen a midnight carriage bearing a green lantern, its window curtains drawn, passing at breakneck speed. And this is a clue, uh, obviously one of the more obscure ones. And then he says, he sort of composes himself and like comes back into the the world, our world. He says, you know, Theodore's has always been terribly sentimental. Whatever she has planned, the place will be an important location from her past. And that's the second clue that you get. You also get a complication, and he looks at you having said all this, and then he just quietly mutters, I'm so sorry. And you gain the condition ill fated. Uh, the omens are not good for you tonight.
And when he says that, I look at him and I say, "Well, perhaps it was presumptuous of me to hope that our meeting could perhaps change my fate. Instead, it seems to have confirmed what I already fear. However, I thank you, my dear prince,
There are
for
many
your help."
worlds, Dr. Malik. No one can say what your fate will be.
True enough, though. And I think Dr. Malik looks towards the stairs above where Miss Reeves and the child are, but it is not my fate that I truly worry for.
So upstairs, the child has been looking increasingly nervous since Dr. Malik left the room. Uh, Reeves, do or say anything to comfort the child, or do you ignore it? What's that scene like?
Oh God, I think she would probably ignore the child as much as she can. Like I'm guessing, like her tendons are still kind of like healing and stuff, so she's probably like fidgeting around in her seat as much as she can and getting just as like anxious as the child, but is getting annoyed at the child. Like, um, probably says something like, "I know you haven't been around in the world long enough, but you know, Dr. Malik can take care of themselves. They're a world class surgeon, so they'll be fine." As Miss Reeves is like trying to like hobble over to the door and like try and look down the stairwell, see if she can overhear anything. And is like telling the child to like stop pacing and sit down as Miss Reeves paces back and forth.
Nice. Um, so I think we'll go back to Limehouse here. Helena, your sister's dead body flops to the floor beside you. What do you do?
I kind of look confused at Jim and say, you could have walked away. You didn't. Why did you do this?
Well, she's gonna cut on your face.
But
That's
you could have left. You didn't. I was willing to do that for you. You could have got out of here.
yeah, but and I appreciate that. That's real kind of you. But if we're gonna be family, we got to stick around. And she's cutting on your face. That just wouldn't be right. I couldn't let that go by.
And
I mean, I didn't seem like the two of you were real close, even though she's your sister. I got family like that too. I mean, not like that, but
I understand, Mr. Fletcher. Yeah, I think she'll. She'll close her sister's eyes. Take the mask off. Close her sister's eyes to the old Greek tradition of putting the coins over the eyes, and
Yeah, so I mean, while that happens, you can hear, people are screaming and running after hearing the gunshot. Before too long, though, Jenny Johnson, who you all know, you might remember from the Limehouse lurker threat, who runs the opium den, comes over, looks at the shot body, looks at Jim Fletcher with just this expression of, not mad, I'm just disappointed. It's what the...
Well, I mean,
what is it this time?
This woman here was gonna cut on our dear Helena's face, and that's just inappropriate.
Well, I'm sure whatever you did, you had a good reason.
now Sally No Face is like it's what the papers call her and stuff, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So I say this is Sally No Face. She tried to attack us.
Yeah, so she gasps a little. But she accepts that. It's like, so is this one for the police, or should I,
I think
indicates
this
hiding the body?
I think this might be one for the Thames.
No, I'll see my sister's body buried properly, but we don't need to tell the police. No.
Or should I have it delivered to Hargrave House?
Hargrave House is in rubble now, thanks to various people. Yeah.
Can we give the address of Malik's old place?
No, I'll take you straight to the morgue. If there's anyone in the Limehouse, I just say, look, I need someone to help carry a body. I've got money. Just see if anyone can help me and carry it.
Yeah, so she can arrange that for you. Someone to take care of the body. It's not the first time that a corpse has had to be discreetly removed from the opium den. She says, Hargrave House destroyed. So many strange and disturbing and violent things happening in the city at the moment.
Yes.
I hope that you'll be safe.
So do we.
Well,
thank you for your discretion.
Now that you mention it, we are trying to figure out exactly what's happening with all of those strange occurrences, including Hargrave House, and why Sally here was just meandering her way through the opium den. You wouldn't have happened to know anything more about why these things might be connected. Maybe you've seen some. We're tracking some sapphire blue. Seems to be a theme here.
We'll go ahead and roll the information move.
Yeah, presence. I have no idea.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll take it. 9.
So, clue and a complication. She starts telling you that she's hearing a lot of disturbing stories lately. They say that someone's been smuggling weapons into the prisons of London, arming the prisoners. They are raising some sort of terrible army. So that is your first clue. But Jenny Johnson is also a side character who you get an extra clue from as a reward from the Limehouse lurker threat. And she tells you that flecks of blood have been found in odd places. She keeps hearing these stories, especially from cleaners, altar boys, things like that, at Big Ben, on the steps of the palace, Westminster Cathedral. She just reels off a list of like prominent London landmarks where flecks of blood have been found. What do you think it all means?
I mean, I don't rightly know. It seems like we got to start putting some of this together, though. But you may want to keep your head down for a little while. Maybe close up the shop.
She nods and takes that in. I think the complication that I'm going to give you is the condition lightly stoned. The opium is going to knock you around a little bit.
Can I send a message? Like just write a message and pay someone to send it or deliver it?
Like a telegram or something?
Yeah, or just a note and just pay someone to go and run across town, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just a DI pedigree and just say, don't accept like packages from Theodora. That's how she's doing magic to, that's the bomb sort of thing. And also there's people smuggling weapons into the prisons. Just alert him to the situation.
Okay. All right. That's cool. So, you all, shall we just reconvene you all, or do you want to, is there other stuff that you want to do? I guess I'll ask you all individually. Jim Fletcher, what are you thinking of doing now, or would you like a scene to sort of get everyone back together?
I'm good to get back together.
To meet up for lunch, because that was mid-morning sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's probably around midday. So where do the 4 hunters go for lunch now that Hargrave House is no more?
Tremorne Gardens.
Oh, nice. Yeah, now that the threat there is hospitalized, I guess that's a nice spot. All right, so you sort of tell each other about what's happened, and then what are your plans for the rest of the day? What's next?
Well, we say we dealt with Sally No Face. I don't mention that she's my sister and stuff because she's a bit upset about it. She's still my sister. Well, she was. Yeah, I'll look at Reeves. Reeves, do you have any ideas what we can do next?
Well, I mean, obviously we're going to have to deal with Miss Breathwaite, but I think before we do that, we should stop the Pinkerton from kind of getting involved in our affairs. He seems to complicate things a lot.
So at the moment, you're sitting on 5 clues for the mastermind threat. So that would have you rolling at -1. You can do that if you want, or you've got the afternoon to try and round up a few more clues if that is what you want to do.
We do have the camera. We could travel. And I think like Dr. Alkabir will bring that up and say, there is, of course, the question of what lies beyond the veil. I've learned, as I described, I've learned that certain perspectives from beyond this world could grant us much information. Perhaps we can make use of the camera, take the ritual for ourselves, and learn what we can about this puppet master behind the scenes.
At a sort of meta game level, is that just going to be, if we go there and look for clue stuff, is that just going to be about the Watley camera thing, or is it going to be potentially Mastermind 2, or what?
So if you use the opportunity that you unlocked for the Watley camera, you can contact if it goes well, you can contact some sort of otherworldly spirit that will provide provide clues to the mastermind threat if that's what you want it to do.
Okay.
Of course, your immortal soul will be in terrible jeopardy, but that's as it is.
Another day on the job for me.
Yeah.
So, and in doing that, we could potentially rescue, was it Jenny or someone that was captured by the camera?
It's Penelope, but you still have the problem that you can only resolve a threat at night, so you wouldn't be able to bring her back unless you wait
Bit of
for
a
the night
night,
phase.
right?
So does everyone want to go to the Society Obscura and use the camera to try and, well, for one or more of you to travel to the void?
Part of me is still tempted to lure, I think his name was Taggart, there and just like leave him in the void.
I'm not
There is
against that idea. That sounds as an option.
I mean, it's the same problem, though, that you can't resolve him except at night.
Yeah. Which if we go to the void at night, then we would be able to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
I kind of feel like, I don't know if we can sort of deal with Theodora. I have already alerted Scotland Yard to sort of what she's up to, so maybe we can try and rescue Penelope, because that is something we can do, sort of thing. I don't want to...
I mean, if we go to the void at night, lure Taggart there, and rescue Penelope on the way out while leaving Taggart there, we resolve 2 threats with 1 camera.
But in terms of like timing, will that mean that we can't address the threat of the mastermind?
I can't imagine we'll have enough time.
Yeah, I think practically you wouldn't be able to do all 3 in the time that we have left.
And from our experiences with them, I'm like, I don't know if we can take her on. It's like, you got to be realistic here. Fight the battle she can win. It's like...
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you can decide what you want. Like, I don't think that mechanically there's any reason that you wouldn't be able to take out Theodora.
Yeah, we already have so many clues already. Yeah.
Do we only have until kind of like the night phase to do it, or do we have like tomorrow as well?
I mean, really, we have until about like an hour and 2 hours and 20 minutes from now, I think.
That's fair.
So if we like, it's possible that we could get into night phases in that time, but I think probably, like, realistically, there's 1 night phase left.
Okay.
So it seems like Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think there's nothing wrong with taking care of the camera twice, right? We could do it during the day to get that extra bit of information about the mastermind clue, see if we can solve the threat, right? Answer the question, and then we can go back in the evening, right?
Yeah, that's true. Once you use the camera to travel to the void, it'll unlock a custom move that'll let you move back and forth into the void easier as well. So if you were to go to the Society Obscura during the day, once you've unlocked that, you wouldn't necessarily need to go back there to enter the void at night.
Yeah, I think that sounds good then.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll do that, Savo. Yeah.
All right. So all 4 of you are going to head to the Society Obscura?
Yeah, I'm just going to imagine that Jim Fletcher was half sleeping, half stoned, and it's just like, oh, what? Yeah, sure.
Take him by the arm and he can just, yeah.
All right. So let's just cut to a scene. The objects that you determined to be part of this ritual have been placed in their proper locations. Portia and Cyrus Abernathy are looking on, almost lustful with excitement at the impending spiritual voyage. The astral plane room where they've set things up is painted in dreamy greys and silver, full of slightly otherworldly objects. And I think that Portia will look up and say, all right, everything is ready. Which of you will it be?
I'll do it. Seems like my shtick. Unless Reeves, you'd like to have a go?
You are the resident expert at all of this, and she just kind of like awkwardly waves her hands at like all the supernatural stuff.
Sort it off, huh? I'll sort of lean close to Reeves and say, look, if things don't go well the next couple of days, I want you to promise me you'll try and get Penelope out.
I'll do my best.
Thank you. All right. So what am I rolling here? Sensitivity,
Well,
I guess.
You're not going to say anything to anyone else before you vanish into the fragrant void?
Nah.
Okay. You don't need to roll to travel to the fragrant void.
Okay.
The camera will do that. You find yourself in this sort of strange realm of mists and shadows as the light from the flashbulb fades. Vague outlines of titanic beasts and floating islands can be seen in the distance. In what ways are you not yourself while you're in this realm?
I think I'm distracted by my sister's death. I'm thinking about the stuff when we were both, 10 and wrestling and fighting with toys and stuff around the house. So I'm distracted.
Nice. So, not long after you arrive, you're still trying to figure out sort of how to navigate the sort of green, fluidy space that you're in. A cloud of spirits approaches you, each of them with 6 eyes. You probably don't recognize, but the audience, the viewers recognize that these are the spirits that you described watching you while you were still in the womb back in our first session.
Oh.
And there's some sort of like great collective intelligence about them. It's a hive mind or something like that. It will try and answer your questions about what's happening, but you will need to roll the information move with sensitivity.
I think that's 3. Yep. Okay. So I can't rescue Penelope on this trip, can I? I've got to do that at night?
That's right.
So this is just clue finding stuff. Okay. 9.
All right, so there's a complication. Okay. So once you have access to the custom move, the spirits of the void will give you 2 clues when you use it. So I think that even though you're not using that move yet, it makes sense that you get 2 clues here. It will show you some visions, but you also get the sense that if you accept this aid from these spirits, they will want your soul in exchange. And when you die, this is where your soul will come. That's the complication.
So I can use a mask and bump that up?
If you want,
yeah. Yeah, right. I'll do that.
All right,
Last
what's the
session,
mask?
bugger it. Flashback to when you were initiation into the coven. I can't remember if they had a name. Oh, I mean, they were called the Fellowship of something.
That's just a name they were using as a cover, really.
I don't know, Sisters of Satanic Sedition or something. And they had a lot of, satanic stuff. So, yeah, there's a lot of inverted Christian symbology, and she has to cut her hands and draw goat's horns and all this sort of stuff on the floor, and there's black candles burning everywhere, and it's all bloody stupid. But it's what they think's appropriate to worship the Dark Lord and all of that.
Mm-hmm. So your recollection of this memory fades into a vision that the spirit is providing to you now. You see a group of hooded figures performing a profane ritual, and you also see a circle of mushrooms that are sort of vibrant with fey magic. So those are the 2 clues that it gives you.
A circle of mushrooms. Okay.
Yeah. You can't really see where they're growing exactly.
Sorry, what is the second clue again?
The circle of mushrooms humming with fey magic. And are you ready to return to the world now?
Well, is there anything else I can do here? Can I look for Penelope while I'm here, or I can't? Nothing.
I mean, you can look for her. You could probably even find her. You could talk to her, but you can't rescue her. You can't resolve her threat.
Okay. I don't know. I guess I can just sort of think, Penelope, we're coming. Oh, no, and I'll yell out, Penelope, we're coming for you. Hold on.
All right. You sense her presence like somewhere distantly. So she's still alive and intact. as best
Good.
as you can tell, not harmed by her experiences.
Good.
And then I'll get you to roll the day move to see if you can successfully return to the material plane.
Sweet. So is that sensitivity or?
Yeah. But first, tell us what you're afraid will happen if you fail or lose your nerve.
Well, I'm afraid I can't come back because the vampires jumped in my body.
Oh, nice. We'll go ahead and roll with sensitivity.
12. Yeah.
Nice. On a 12 plus, you do what you intended or you hold steady, and the keeper will tell you some extra benefit or advantage you receive. Describe what it looks like. So you return successfully from the void. Is there any particular benefit that you'd like, or I can offer something?
Nah, come at me. Go for it.
All right. Well, I might come back to that. So Helena has been gone for a few minutes. What have you all been doing or talking about in her absence? Jim Fletcher, let me start. Jim Fletcher, Helena didn't say goodbye before she vanished, possibly forever, into another world. How are you feeling about that?
I think I am trying to hold it together, but very borderline crying into my whiskey because I'm kind of stoned and I just can't keep it together the way I normally would.
Excuse me. Does anyone want to?
Yeah. Yeah, when I see that, I very carefully pull away the whiskey, and I take your hand and without looking at Miss Reeves, I go, Miss Reeves, a cigarette for Mr. Fletcher, if you please.
Yeah, and I think Miss Reeves has probably backup cigarettes for the doctor on her person, and just instantly pops one out and has it ready.
And I think the doctor does his best to comfort Jim by saying, I haven't known Helena for, and it's strange that the doctor is referring to her as Helena, right, instead of Miss Henbury. I haven't known Helena for a long time, but she seems incredibly resilient. I'm sure that she will return to us as soon as she is able. Now, Mr. Fletcher, I'll need you to. And then I sort of go like this, stiff, upper lip, a little bit of British in you. I'm sure you can manage it, my dear.
We didn't even have a chance to tell you. We had a powerful frightening day. This Sally No Face character just showed up. Showed up in the bed and
showed up in the bed.
Well, yeah. Anyway, I had to shoot her because she was gonna cut on Helena's face like that, and then she just left. It just doesn't seem right. You just don't leave people like that. I mean, I'm sure she'll be fine though. I'm sure you're right. Just take a big drag on the cigarette.
Mr. Fletcher, people like Helena have seen many things and have heard in ways that you and I cannot imagine. I think it's understandable that some people, not myself, of course, but other people would have difficulty in expressing themselves and being sincere with the people they care about. Don't you think?
I mean, I do understand you British types like to hold it back a little bit more than we do. But yeah, no, I guess if she thought she wasn't gonna come back, she would have said something all right. But she said that thing to Reeves, and now I'm feeling some kind of way a little bit.
Well, Mr. Fletcher, I'm sure you will figure out a way to get your feelings to her. Perhaps in a way that I wouldn't agree with, something terribly American of you, but I'm sure you'll manage it.
I mean, do you ever just like totally cut loose, Doctor? I mean, just really like unbutton that vest one or two more buttons and just kind of let yourself go. Like, really, have you ever done that?
Well, Mr. Fletcher, I haven't quite, but. And then I think like there's a moment when Malik looks towards Miss Reeves and then looks back at Jim and says, I don't quite trust myself. No.
I know a thing or two about not trusting yourself because, well, you've seen what happens when things don't work quite right for me. But sometimes it's exactly what a body needs. You just gotta let it go. You know, I think we're on our way to tangling with some powerful folk, and we may need everything you can offer.
I assure you, Mr. Fletcher, everything I have is at your disposal.
You notice at this point that the child is looking at you a little concerned about this conversation.
Oh, I turn to the child and I say, "Oh, my dear, this is what we call flirting."
Speaking of flirting, Miss Reeves, while this is going on, Periwinkle Underwood, the servant, has come up beside you with a little tray of drinks, dressed now in a sort of burgundy silk jockstrap and matching cravat, and looks you up and down and says, "Can I do anything for you?"
And I think at that, like, you see Miss Reeves just kind of like shoulders tensing slowly and like gets her own cigarette to like stress smoke. And she'll probably ask for like a very obscure brandy that she's really hoping they don't have here. So like he's gonna have to like travel to go get. And say, I'm very particular, and that would help me in this time of emotional turmoil that I'm going through, not knowing the fate of my dear friend Helena.
Yeah. So his shoulders slump a little in disappointment that you're just going to send him off, but he will go to attend to your request. And Helena, in a sort of, there's a moment when the flashbulb that went off when Helena disappeared, it's as if time flows backwards, the flashbulb comes back together, and Helena is standing exactly where she left. And let's take a break here. So we'll come back just about 6 minutes past the hour.
So are we going to try and answer the mastermind question before the night phase, or?
Yeah, so that we can hopefully try to have at least more options to address everything, right? So,
Okay.
Yeah, because we're pretty good, right? I think we're at a plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we'll be at a +1. We can use everything.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm late.
No, it's good.
Everyone good to continue? So as Helena returns, there's a moment when everything feels odd, and then a sort of palpable sense of relief in the room that everything has worked. And that at that point, as everything relaxes, you start to notice just how strange a place you're all in. I'm going to ask each of you a paint the scene question. There are objects arranged all over this room that seem to be from another world or time. I would like you each to describe one. So, Jim Fletcher, would you like to go first?
I'm just gonna go with what's in front of me. There is a rectangular glass device that doesn't seem to do anything, and it has this little apple with a bite out of it on the back, and we're just like, someone left it here.
Just going to add that to the list of vices for the playbook. And Miss Reeves, what do you see?
There is, we'll say, like in a kind of cage off to the side instead of like a bird or a peacock, it's a Ouroboros that's like swallowing its own tail, and then right as it's about to like finish, just kind of you never like it never finishes as you're looking at it. You just kind of like look away, and then as you look back, it's starting over again.
Nice. Dr. Malik?
Yeah, I think there is a collection of bones that have been put together. I think to someone it would look like that famous hoax of the mermaid where it's like half the monkey skeleton and half a fish skeleton. So it looks like it's a hoax, but there's something surreal about the bones and the material they're made out of, and they just every time you look away and you look back, it's slightly moved.
Nice. And Helena?
I think it's like a number of. It's like a instead of an egg timer, it's a water timer, but the water always flows upwards instead of flowing downwards. Doesn't matter which way you turn it, and they're all different shapes and sizes. But yeah, the water always flows upwards.
Nice. So once you're back, Cyrus and Portia are both like right up in your personal space, just like almost examining you, like looking you up and down, sort of muttering to each other about how incredible it is that you've returned, incoherently asking you about what you've seen, what you've witnessed, what was it like, how did you do it?
Yeah, I'll say I'll describe the spirits with the eyes and how it's a sort of misty, multicolored void and stuff.
They're totally enthralled, just hanging on your every word, as are the other members of the society. You probably will eventually have to, sort of push them away, or let them know that you need some space before you're able to talk to your friends about what you've seen.
Yeah, I don't mention Penelope to the society people because I don't presume they care. So I'll just talk about how my experience was in there. I'll make sure that creepy guy's in there, Reeves, because I'm protective of her. Yeah. All right. And I'll say, Dr. Malik, shall we head off? What next?
Yeah, and I think the doctor looks at you and just sort of like does that British thing of like nodding, like, glad you're back in one piece. We don't need to make a scene out of this. And then I apologize to my British friends who are listening. Okay, and then after that, I'll say, "Whoa, Miss Reeves and Helena and Mr. Fletcher. It seems that we should be able to begin to piece together what is going on behind the scenes. May I suggest?" And I sort of like look around because like I know we have like people around here, that we reconvene to my home.
Yes.
So the Society Obscura will start furiously making notes on the walls about what's happened and how they can recreate it. Maybe one of them punching some numbers into the strange glass.
I'll take Portia by the hand and say, look, I promise to give a more detailed report later. We've got a lot to do, but I will come back and discuss it with you.
Yeah, most kind. Most kind.
I do actually, as we head back, I do take Helena aside and I'll say, "My dear, we do have in front of us quite a task. And Miss Henbury, I would like it if all of us were to be focused. Whatever is going on between you and the American, I need you to take care of it. Do you understand?" He was like, he almost cried in front of me.
Meanwhile, Jim Fletcher is completely playing it cool.
Danny Zuko.
And now, understand, I think tears can be quite endearing, but those tears were meant for you and not for me, and I think you should address them.
Miss Reeves,
Thank you.
as this conversation goes on, you are sort of shocked by the child just sort of suddenly being like right beside you, and it leans towards you and it says, "Is this more of what Mother called flirting?"
And Miss Reeves kind of like does a little jump at the child showing up there. And she'll say, "Not yet, I don't think. This is just Malik being Malik."
Very interesting.
Mhm.
So Helena, do you want a scene with Jim Fletcher? Maybe in the back of the cab or something?
I think she'll just sit next to him and hold his hand if he lets her. Just give him a slight smile. A lot to do today.
Yeah, I'll allow it.
Now, I have an idea, which none of you are going to like, but it's something that would need to be done if we can control the situation. So I guess this is in like a coach wagon or something, going back to Dr. Malik's house. And I say, there's still a vampire out there, and I propose that I summon it and in a prepared place, and we kill it. So that way we don't have to worry about it anymore. It's no longer an issue.
I'm sorry, do you have the ability to summon vampires?
Like yourself, I have many hidden talents, Dr. Malik.
Somehow I feel our talents are completely different from one another, but yes.
They are, but many-fold. However, if we control in a place we can control and we have weapons ready, I thought it would be better than it just showing up at an inconvenient time, because it is out there.
Can you summon any vampires, or just the one we've interacted with?
Just the one we've interacted with.
Oh, that's too bad.
It gives you a weird look.
Is there a certain vampire you're looking for there, Ms. Reeves?
More, it would be a good way to muddle Miss Braithwaite's plans if there are a lot of uncontrolled vampires you have to deal with.
I mean, there was some discussion between sessions about raising an army of the dead. I am open to you rolling to summon an army of the dead if that's what you want to do. You will have to roll the night move for that. That is not under any circumstances going to be a day move.
Yeah.
Give it a go.
I think that would be even more risky than just dealing with one. But
that sounds fair.
If this is not something you would, you want yourselves and the child to be in, perhaps Jim and I can handle this on our own. But I would rather deal with it in a situation that we can control some of the factors of, than just wait for it to show up at night.
Are the other hunters going to go along with this? Allow Miss Hembry to try?
Well, I'm looking at them waiting for a response.
I'm in full support, and Doctor, this might be the perfect time for you to cut loose, like we were talking about.
Oh, when you say that, I look at you meaningfully, and I undo the first button of my waistcoat, and I say, without looking away from Mr. Fletcher, I say, "Very well, Miss Henbury. We'll do as you suggest."
And Reeves leans over to the child and says, "That was flirting."
The child nods appreciatively.
Mm-hmm.
Can the factotum get a point for teaching the child?
Yeah, so what will the setup be? So I imagine like some sort of salt circle or something to summon.
Maybe, I guess a basement. If Dr. Malik's got a basement or something where nice stuff isn't going to get damaged, because I'm expecting Jim's guns to go off and that. So yeah, some sort of salt circle.
I think there is a slightly disturbing basement where you can tell people were like held down or, for experiments, or other things that are not experiments, perhaps cutting loose, as Mr. Fletcher described, by getting tied up. And so, yeah. But I'll prepare the space for you.
Right. So everyone's ready to kill the vampire if this works.
Yep.
Is the child in the basement with you? Like, I still such like, because you said the child is always with you, but I wonder.
I know, and there's a vampire. I think I'm gonna have the child be by the door, and like I'm gonna place a hand on his face, and I'll say, "I want you here to learn what you can, but I also want you to be careful." And but I also look at the child and I say, "If you ever have to choose between protecting me and Miss Reeves, I want you to protect Miss Reeves. Do we understand each other?"
The child, like, its eyes widen at that, and it starts to say, "But mother."
This is hard to explain, my dear, but Miss Reeves' life is more important than my own.
It just looks back at you. It's in some distress, but has taken on what you said. So Helena, go ahead and roll with sensitivity. So I guess this is Rites of Salt and Smoke.
Yeah.
And describe a little the scene as it goes on.
Yes, I've sprinkled the salt around, and I've pricked some of my blood in the middle in like a pentagram to summon it in. I guess people are stationed outside the circle with whatever weapons they think is going to help. Hopefully, all of them. And yeah, we've got plenty of lights and gas lamps or candles or whatever because we need to see. I don't want it to just flick one light and turn them off. So yeah.
All right, we'll roll with sensitivity.
Okay. 8.
You get to choose a complication.
I don't know. Maybe it's really quick and it kind of jumps on me. So if they attack it, there's a chance they can wound me.
Can you choose one of the complications from the list in the move?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yep. Effect is less than you wanted. It's less than you wanted. I'll tell you condition.
All right. So I think that you do summon it. It appears in the circle before you all, but in the act of summoning, you somehow like internalize some of the vampiric taint that runs through its blood.
Lovely.
The condition will be vampiric corruption. Just a hint. Not becoming a vampire, but a little tiny bit vampire-y. I won't have. I'm not going to make the 4 of you roll because you've just like summoned this thing into the middle of the circle and you're all standing around ready to kill it. So it doesn't strike me as particularly risky for any of you. Do you want to narrate what happens? Like, does Mr. Fletcher just shoot it, or do you want to talk to it at all before it goes?
Mr. Fletcher's going to hold back and see if Malik and/or Reeves jump in first, but we'll be a last line of defense in case he's needed.
I'm going, kill it.
It's hissing, it's squealing, it's baring its fangs.
Yeah, I mean, let me know what you think, Miss Reeves, but I think Miss Reeves and the doctor like move in this like coordinated fashion from both sides and just like go straight for the all that time practicing bodies has been helpful.
Just like surgical precision.
And like an impossible amount of blood flows from the vampire as you kill it, as if the blood is. Remember that enormous blood reservoir that you found under the city? It's as if that's pouring out through the wounds that you've opened up in it. You're going to have to get out of the basement before it, reaches the hems of your trousers and skirts. Yeah, but it's certainly dead.
Huh.
And I think that's got to take us out of the afternoon and into the dusk. But before we do the dusk phase proper, do you want to try and answer a question for the mastermind?
Yeah. I think as Malik ushers everyone out to make sure we don't get blood on our clothes, Malik will just very clearly say, "Miss Reeves, if you could put on some tea."
Of course, doctor. As like, I assume everyone's just like covered in blood, and she just kind of like takes a handkerchief and like wipes, her face off as best she can, and then goes to prepare a cup of tea.
Oh, Miss Reeves, you missed the spot. I say as I place like a finger near your mouth to clean that bit off for you.
Perfect.
I think Helena will say, that went better than expected, but she finds herself keeps staring at the blood.
But yeah, so shall we answer a question?
The question is, whereabouts is the mastermind's big move going to take place?
We know one of the clues is, let's see, Theodora is sentimental. The place will be an important location from her past, right?
Yeah, there was a circle of mushrooms thing, so that makes me think it's like a garden or a park. It's not inside a building.
I mean, maybe one of the gardens at Buckingham Palace, because we know she has a relationship with the Queen, or a rumored relationship with the Queen. And we've got these flecks of blood in odd places, so maybe she's been testing out other places
that are similar, right?
Yeah,
or they may be in a pattern around the palace to kind of triangulate the palaces in the middle.
That works too.
Oh, like the Watley camera, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and like the group of hooded figures performing a ritual might be tied to the flecks of blood, where like as we put pins on the map of where we find the blood, we realize it's like a pentagram or some other arcane symbol that Helena recognizes that indicates like it's this type of ritual, or like it's targeting in the middle, which is Buckingham Palace.
Ooh, it could be. So we know it's a garden, right? We believe it's a garden. What if it's like a church? There has to be a church nearby where all these hooded figures came from, right? So it's a place that appears to be a church, but is really a cult of some kind.
Near Buckingham Palace.
Yeah. Totally not ominous. What do we think about the smuggling weapons into prisons to build an army? How can we connect that?
Is that kind of like a red herring in the sense of like it's more just to cause disorder and chaos so people don't realize what's going on at that church?
Yeah, like we're going to get prison breaks all over the city.
Yeah. It could be the ritual needs a lot of blood, so she needs the revolution to basically blood that comes from that is going to power the spell.
Yeah.
And so then our book of fairy tales might be what, like instructions for the ritual, because it's got these comments and corrections in an unknown language.
Oh, maybe it's code, right?
Like
Sorry,
it is the spell book.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And then a midnight carriage bearing a green lantern moving at breakneck speeds. I think maybe that's a vision of Theodora, like trying to get to, like there's some component of like it has to be someplace nearby where she lives, right? So I guess it's easier to triangulate like it's that specific garden near a church near Buckingham Palace, because we're able to like put together the clues that it has to be someplace that she can reach in time.
Yes, it's like it's a limited time it can work for. It's got to be timed perfectly, otherwise the energy won't grow. Gather at the right time.
Nice.
I mean, I sort of want to explain away the midnight carriage as just like some other asshole in the city, because it's not sapphire blue.
That is
like
true.
Someone else is riding
it's
a creepy carriage, and it's not related.
True.
But maybe it's us, and she's had a vision of us trying to stop her, and that's why she's been attacking us.
There we go. Oh, I love that.
Okay, that's very cool. I like that. Yeah.
So
We are
I
terribly important.
just did some quick googling, and it seems to me that the nearest church to Buckingham Palace is Westminster Cathedral. So
Nice.
what I understand is that you're saying that there is. I'm just not quite clear about this bit. There's a garden where this will take place. It's either at Buckingham Palace or at the cathedral or somewhere in between. Like, where is the
Near the
garden?
cathedral. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I thought
so
it was at the
there's
palace, and you can see the church from there. Like if you're in the garden, you can look up and see the church over the wall or something.
yeah, I may have done the same googling, and like Buckingham Palace Garden sort of faces Westminster Cathedral, and there's
Okay.
actually beautiful pictures, but there's like ponds and little wooded areas and all kinds of stuff.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Everyone should do a quick Google image search on Buckingham Palace Gardens.
Yeah, it's
Well,
incredible.
actually, we should roll dice before we get too attached to that location. This is likely, or at least hopefully, the last answer a question roll of the game. Who wants to roll the dice? No pressure.
I think Reeves.
Okay. I'll do it.
2d6
This
plus one.
is +1. Okay. Oh no. Snake
No. Are you serious?
Great.
Jesus fucking Christ. No.
Brutal.
So brutal.
So to increase that to a success with the complication, you will all need to put a mask on.
Do we have any mystery masks available to
I
us, or have we?
Wasn't there Cremorne Gardens left? Because I thought we had 2 spare.
yeah.
Jim used one last time.
That's true. I guess the Cremorne Gardens one is still technically there. You've saved Cremorne Gardens, sort of.
No, I have that one checked off.
Oh, yeah, I see it checked off as well.
Oh, okay.
So I think we did
Yeah.
use that one.
yeah, that last truly fun day they had. I think
the-
we had the
Figs Pigs got reopened.
Yeah, has that been reviewed?
No, because I would have remembered doing this one.
Yeah, so I think that
Or St. James Street Ghost is unchecked for me.
But we've
so
resolved
I
that
think that
threat.
one's resolved, so
Okay.
that's not available. So yeah, I think one of you can use the Figs Pigs one, and the rest of you will need to put on a mask of your own.
I assume that Jim needs it, right?
So I have 2 masks left. One of those masks is narrate a scene in which you are physically destroyed.
So I think you'll take that one.
Yeah.
That would be very nice.
The mask of the pig, Mr. Fletcher. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll just start with Jim Fletcher then. Do you want to narrate your scene?
Yeah, so we'll say this is maybe a slightly opium-induced dream, and as Jim is kind of fading in and out a little bit at the end of the day, it's been a busy day. He dreams of the pig god Moch, who is
Wow.
Where?
I think that was just great.
All good. Dreams of the pig god Moch, who is quite upset that Jim Fletcher has destroyed his previous servant, and so as we see the Moch demand sacrifices riches, status, or blood, and he is demanding blood. And in this case, the sacrifice is Jim Fletcher sacrificing himself. Like Jim is the sacrifice in this dream.
Nice. Miss Reeves, what mask will you put on?
I will do narrate a flashback that shows how you had to engage in emotional labor in order to please or soothe your employer. I think
Isn't
it's
that every day?
I know. I'm like, and I think it kind of does start that way. Of it's just all these cutscenes of like Dr. Malik being completely indifferent to Miss Reeves and, demanding and stuff, and Miss Reeves just kind of like smiling and saying like, of course, and that's a very smart thing for you to point out. I should have done that differently. And it's just like boom, 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 like back to back of that over and over again. And then it slows down a little bit, and there's a scene of I think Miss Reeves like coming back from a trip out, like handling stuff, kind of bringing back vegetables, stuff like that, and looking very noticeably like sad and down to like anyone who would notice. And Dr. Malik's kind of making a lot of demands of her and saying I'm famished, I've been studying and working on the child forever, I need dinner. And Miss Reeves is like accommodating him and stuff like that. And as she puts all of her stuff down, there's a card for like a funeral basically that she had just been at, and it's left ambiguous of like whose funeral it was for, as Miss Reeves goes to the kitchen and like starts to prepare Malik's dinner.
Nice. Dr. Malik, what mask will you put on?
Yeah, I'm gonna put my last mask of the past. Narrate a flashback to the time when you finally said goodbye to the person you lost, and I think as that flashback of Miss Reeves preparing dinner, it fades into Malik doing something similar, like preparing dinner, it seems, at the kitchen, but as the camera pulls back, we see instead that it's an array of like tools and drugs, and Malik just looks down at the tools in front of him and he says, if you're sure that this is what you want, my love, I can't say no to you. And I think like behind them we see Malik's love like sitting at the kitchen table, and he just says, just one last meal together, that's all I ask. And Malik turns and says, I promise that you won't feel anything.
And Helena.
So I've got to narrate one where I left the coven. I guess their rights got darker and more serious, like offering, you get sold to Satan while in the middle of an orgy and there's blood everywhere, and she's just sort of, no, this is not what I wanted. I wanted power. I didn't want to lose myself for the price. So she's just, she's running from the coven headquarters, and it's a thunderstorm, and they're sort of glaring at her, we'll get you.
That was an awesome round of scenes. Thank you, everyone. So that brings you up to a success, but the keeper will add an unwelcome complication to the answer, or pursuing the opportunity will be more dangerous. So, I think we'll have a dusk phase now. Firstly, we're going to resolve playbook moves that trigger in the dusk phase. Let's see. Jim Fletcher, do you want to do the quickening?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same. I think it's the same stat either way, but oh no, composure's better. Yeah, I'm gonna try and keep it together. We got serious business, and I cannot be losing myself. And maybe I'll do a little bit of bargaining with Mach the Pig God in the process.
Nice. That's
okay.
just you hold it together, right?
And I get a condition drained.
Okay.
Shit.
Reeves, what are you going to do for your dusk phase moves?
I have the Ghost of Hargrave House, where I uncheck someone's item and change it in a unique way. So let's see. Who has a lot of stuff checked? I'll say... Oh, it's too good. I'll say the cameo pendant that Helena has. You find it, like you thought you had it on you and then realize you don't anymore, and then you find it, and I'll leave it up to you. I think either the cameo of your sister, there's now like red tears running down her cheeks, or or like it's cracked in a way where it looks like she's wearing the mask, but it's just like her face cracked off. I don't know what you think is more traumatic to your character.
Probably the mask,
Okay.
because that's not the way I want to remember her.
Mhm.
Wow, that's rough.
So I have that one, and then day work. I just spend, the day caring for, well, Dr. Malik's house now, not Hargrave House anymore, tidying up. And we hopefully shouldn't need any more clues anymore. So I think Dr. Reeves will find something. I'll say it. Maybe something from the vampire that we got, like after the blood finally like settles and stops just spewing out. Dr. Malik's probably like, Reeves, you should really go down and clean that up. So as she's taking care of that, she finds, I'll say she finds like a key that looks very like regal and official. Like maybe it's a key to somewhere in Buckingham Palace, or like to get us in somewhere. And so I give that to another hunter, and they add it to their personal quarters. I'll give that, of course, I give that to Dr. El Kabir.
And Dr. Malik, can Harley White find you over here?
Yeah, I think I'm in the middle of wondering when the doorbell is rung, and I'm like, of course. And so when Mr. White appears at the doorstep, I tell him, well, Mr. White, tonight I think I will be in need of your direct services. And I'm going to choose a grave robber, either Harley or another, probably going to be Harley, will accompany you during the upcoming night phase. Take the following condition, ghoulish. So.
Nice. And you roll with advantage when Harley helps you, is that how
Yeah.
it works? Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And Helena, I don't think you have any dusk phase moves, is that right? Cool. So next, normally I pose a paint the scene question about Hargrave House. Hargrave House is destroyed, so we won't do that. So instead, I'm just going to ask each of you, what are you most afraid will happen tonight? Jim Fletcher, starting with you.
I'm afraid I will be ineffective.
Nice. Miss Reeves, what are you most afraid of?
Reeves is afraid that she won't be able to protect the family that she's found.
Nice. Dr. Malik?
I'm afraid that I'm going to disappoint Miss Reeves in the same way that I've disappointed my love.
Interesting. And Helena?
I don't think she's afraid.
Okay.
She's just, it's just another day in the long litany of tragedies that has been her recent monster hunting life.
Okay. Cool. So now I will ask each of you what you want to do during the upcoming night phase. Would you like to have a little discussion amongst yourselves first, or shall we just go around and ask each of you individually?
Yeah, has anyone got a plan? I'm a bit unclear.
Let's see.
Oh.
So we have the 3 threats to resolve. Because can only one person go to the void at a time, or could we all
So the move that you have access to now is in the moves tab. It's called Void Walker. So it looks like an individual. So you have to roll for it. So I guess if each person who wants to go would have to roll. That might get a bit boring. I guess we'll just let one person roll for whoever wants to travel to the void.
Okay.
I'm going to be deeply impressed if you manage to resolve all 3 threats in one night phase.
I mean, yeah, to me, the only way we can do that is by splitting up.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Malik's persuasive. Maybe they could go and lure that Pinkerton guy. And then I could go and do
I act persuasive, but yes, sure. Absolutely.
You know specifically where he's staying. Like, he's not hard to find if you want to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll do that, and then so we're going to split up, right? Who else will handle what other threats?
Well, I guess it makes the most sense for me to go to the void.
So
again,
and then,
Reeves and Fletcher at Buckingham Palace.
Sounds
unless Reeves wants to try the void, and I'll go to Buckingham Palace. What does Reeves think?
From a metagame standpoint, with my 0 sensitivity, I don't see that ending well.
It's not a minus.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I can do that if you'd rather go to Buckingham Palace.
No, I'm happy either way as a player. You say what you.
Okay.
But you have to have marked the Cosmic Passage, and Reeves and I have not marked that, so we can't use the Void Walker move. Actually,
so it has to be me.
I mean, you could just mark the Cosmic Passage. You wouldn't get any benefit from it, except for what's in the mask itself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So what I've got is that Helena is going to enter the void. Dr. Malik is going to visit the Pinkerton, and Reeves and Fletcher are going to head to Buckingham Palace Gardens. Is that right?
Could we squeeze in a vulnerable move before we do that? Is there enough time to do that? I'm looking at some people's conditions, and I'm a little nervous.
I mean,
some people's.
Yeah.
Technically, you can't have a vulnerable move in the dusk phase, but I suppose just this once, or we could allow it.
Well, they had cigarettes and brandy before, like when they were chatting to the child and stuff.
Right. Could we have counted that as a vulnerable move in retrospect? I should have realized.
When I was off in the void, they're having a deep and meaningful chat with Jim Fletcher, so... Yeah.
Well, I mean, I invite anyone who'd like to just do a quick scene, because I do want to get to the night phase.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I just drag without even asking Mr. Fletcher. I just take him by the elbow, bring him towards the infirmary, and I'll say, Mr. Fletcher, if you could remove your clothing and lie down, please. And then I turn to the child. This is a different version. This is not quite flirting. This is simply work.
I'm sorry. What now, Doctor?
You look terrible because you're drained, right?
Yeah.
And I say, you look terrible. We can't have you in this shape, Mr. Fletcher. There's too much at stake.
I mean, I guess you are a doctor.
I am indeed. And so with that, I think I'm going to use my infirmary move. And so when the vulnerable move here is triggered, each hunter can clear 1 additional physical condition.
All right. And you don't really have any use for a clue, but you want to also invite the other hunter to ask you about your past.
Yeah, and I think the way it looks is as I'm attending to Mr. Fletcher, I'm very unprofessionally smoking a cigarette on the side. I sort of leave the cigarette on the side and then pull it out every so often. And Dr. Alcubierre is very professional, right? But I will, of course, invite you to ask me about my past if you like.
Just a quick question, Shane. Are you going to let me clear drained, even though it's from the quickening?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I still don't have the advantage of the
Yeah.
physical stuff anyway. So, all right. So as you're doing that, um, you know, you seem to be a bit of a more unusual doctor than the few doctors I've known, and I'm just wondering, when when did you know you wanted to be a doctor?
And as you ask that question, like I'm having a hard time getting to, because you're such a tall person, I'm having a hard time getting to those very broad shoulders. I have to take off my waistcoat, unfortunately. And I say, when did I realize I wanted to become a doctor? I'm not sure what it's like for you in America, Mr. Fletcher, but from where I am, it's not always easy to chart your own path. It was a journey that was decided for me. I come from a family that is known for their doctors, and that is simply the case. I did not have a choice in the matter.
Fair enough.
That being said, I have come to enjoy it immensely, especially when it garners a certain amount of closeness to the human soul so that I may study it with eyes wide open.
Helena, would you also want to trigger the vulnerable move with Reeves while that's going on? I just noticed that you're also sitting on a good number of conditions.
Yeah, I don't really want to get wasted before this. This doesn't seem like a good idea.
You can still ask Reeves to engage in her vice.
Okay. Yeah, I'll say, shall we have a drink?
And I'm imagining Miss Reeves is like gearing, like this is like the scene in like action movies where she's gearing up and putting like kitchen knives in her boots and stuff like that, and probably like the small little pistol that I think Jim Fletcher got her. And she's like, now, I mean, and then kind of thinks about like how good a brandy would be, and it's like, I suppose so. Yeah, we have time. I mean, there'll be Dr. Malik will probably be another 3.5 minutes based on the type of procedure he does, and then like pours each of us a glass. Yeah.
I've been thinking about getting away from here, taking a trip away. There's too many bad memories in London. So I wanted to give you something, either way, if I don't make it through the night or if I decide to end up leaving. So anyway, this is for you. I'll give you an envelope.
You're coming back though, right?
Yeah, I'll come back, but I'll be away for a while. And that's you're the best of us. You are always good, and out of all the things I've done, I would like you to have something. And it's basically a key and title to a townhouse across the road from the Beals. It's not a huge place, but it's your own house.
I've never had my own things before.
I might need to crash there when I come back, but yeah, other than that, it's yours.
Oh, of course, yes. I'll have your room ready for you, and the bedding turned down. But you're selling yourself short. We're all, we all contribute to this dysfunctional family we have. I mean, Dr. Al-Kabir is, brilliant. He's able to solve anything we throw at him, and everything about the weird supernatural stuff. Like
I think she's crying, and she'll say, "I've done many things I've regretted, but if I can help you in this way, then it makes me happy."
And Reeves is kind of doing the awkward British, like, pats you a little bit on the side a few times, and then kind of like looks over. You see her do the math in her head of like how much longer Dr. Al-Kabir will be, and probably knows like We have a minute 45, and then just like envelops you in a very like sisterly hug of, kind of grabs you close and just whispers like, be safe wherever you're going.
Nice. So I'm going to introduce the unseen prompt, and then I think we'll do the first unseen prompt, and then we'll probably take a break. I just want to mention, so some of you are low on masks. The last mask, of course, requires you to narrate a scene where you're destroyed physically. If that comes up, I don't intend to like force you to do it straight away. Like I want you to be part of the like climactic scenes. So if you need to mark that, as long as you sort of narrate it by the end of the night phase, that works for me. The unseen prompt that we're going to use today starts at F31. It's another night at the Grand Guignol. Good for her. Every class of people in London is represented in the audience at the Theatre Grand Guignol. They have come to watch a production of Good for Her, a story about a nanny that murders the upper class children in her care. So the first prompt is a paint the scene question. So all of you will be answering. As the limelights pop to life and the crimson curtain is raised, what do we see as we scan the stage that shows how the nanny lives a modest life compared to the rich family she serves? Jim Fletcher?
Oh man. I think we're getting like the stage, that kind of stage setup where you can sort of see two places at once, like on different sides of the stage. And so we're kind of seeing the children in their nursery room while the nanny's in her quarters. And the children have just it's the most extravagantly decorated nursery room in all sorts of like sapphire blue silks and sapphire blue pillows and curtains, and whereas the nanny's room is very drab and colorless.
And Ms. Reeves?
I think kind of in that same showing two different scenes at the same time. There's a scene of the nanny kind of cleaning up in the kids' room, and they have like two different actresses that they've dressed up as the nanny. So one's cleaning up in the kids' room, and they're folding like gem encrusted clothes, fine silks, putting away toys that are, ornate, gilded stuff, and then the nanny cleaning up in her room, and it's a very putting away, plain gray cotton, dusting cobwebs, using makeshift items just to try and like get by and that sort of thing. And they're pretty much like mimicking the same movements as they're doing everything, but they're just very different, like quality.
Nice. Dr. Malik?
Yeah, and I think another way that we see how different their lives are is we notice that the nanny assists the cook in preparing the meals and everything, but the family has at their disposal this like overly the top like luxurious spread of food, and they eat way too much, more than they have to. You can tell that the children are eating themselves sick, and only when the children are done eating, the nanny has to eat the leftovers. There is no food that is created for her specifically.
And Helena?
I think this is like when they're taking care of the owner's sort of clothes, they spend like 10 minutes just brushing and cleaning the clothes to make sure there's no hair or dirt or any marks on them. And then in the nanny's room, there's just like a bit of string from one side to the other with all their clothes up, and they're basically hanging their laundry in their own bedroom, and it's very cramped.
Cool. All right, so I'd love to take a 10-minute break here. So we'll come back just about 7 minutes past the hour and see how many of these threats you can get resolved. So, Dr. Malik, you are heading off to see Winslow Taggart. With the child in tow, I presume.
And also Mr. Mr. White.
That's right, Mr. White. So it's a good thing that you have Harley with you because it's actually harder than it would normally be to navigate the streets tonight because uh, battalions of armed soldier prisoners busted out of the prisons and the prison hulks of London, roaming the streets, rounding up the police, rounding up anyone else who might interfere with Theodora's plans, dressed immaculately in sapphire blue military uniform. But you wend your way past them. You make it to the hotel where you know that Winslow is staying. You make your way up to his room. What do you do?
Yeah, and so I turn to the child and I say, "Beloved, this will hopefully be a lesson in negotiation, but perhaps it could be a lesson in violence. We will see what fate lies in store for us tonight. I would have you know that the two can be very close to each other, like siblings sometimes."
Close.
Yeah, and then I think I'm gonna knock on the door, and it's Taggart. His name is right. I'd be like, "Mr. Taggart, if you would be so kind as to grant me a moment of your time."
So you hear him walk over. He opens the door, looks out and sees the three of you, which is quite a scene. He looks a little disheveled. You know, he's like pulled out his shirt tails. He's obviously been drinking. His gun is still hanging on his hip though. He says, "Why, Dr. Malik, isn't it? I don't believe I've had the pleasure of your good friend there."
Right, and I have not had the pleasure of my name in your mouth, and now I wish it weren't there anymore. But, Mr. Taggart, as you know, that we have come to an arrangement of sorts between you and Mr. Fletcher, I understand.
I don't believe there is no arrangement except now I'm gonna take him back to the United States one way or the other. You leave that door open. I don't want to be. Well, I don't trust you, Hargrave house types.
I understand you are an intelligent man, one who has seen a lot. Well, perhaps it would. I'm here to prove you right that us Hargrave house types cannot be trusted. I think that you and I can come to an agreement. If I could find Mr. Fletcher in a vulnerable position to you, then. And then so I'm trying to like trick him into thinking I've set up this trap. And I'm sure you and I both understand that Mr. Fletcher has a certain set of conditions that plague him. With my skills as a doctor, I have ensured that these conditions will be most difficult for him to overcome. But I will not give this help to you for free. I have my own debts to pay.
I'm a listening.
What do you have to offer me, Mr. Taggart, in exchange for the assurance that you will be able to fulfill your contract?
Well, I don't know that I have a lot to offer you, but then I don't know that you have a lot to offer me. I will fulfill my contract. I don't need any help from you. No offense, doctor.
Well, Mr. Taggart, I assure you, as a doctor, I can be incredibly helpful, or I can be incredibly difficult, an obstacle almost. You understand?
Well, I don't expect you to be too much of an obstacle. I'm on my way now to go and fetch Mr. Fletcher, and I also done arranged to sell you to your friend behind that door. And he kind of gestures to where the door has like sat open, and somebody standing behind it starts to push it so that you see revealed Elmore, one of Theodora's servants. He's a kind of he's not a physical specimen. He's a kind of shriveled old man with wisps of grey hair. And he says, now, Dr. Malik, sorry, but Theodora's asked me to bring you along. You and the child, I understand. I don't want any trouble. Please just come with me.
And I bow to our new guest and I turn back to Mr. Tackett. Ah, very well then. What would Mr. Fletcher call it? The hard way, I believe.
And what do you do?
Yeah, I think I'm going to. I sort of like look towards the child in a way that I would look at Miss Reeves normally, and then sort of like nod this understanding. I'm going to have the child and I gang up and Taggart while Mr. White tries to close the door back on the person who just like came through, I think.
All right.
So this feels like I think this feels like a night move, right?
Oh, this is a night move. What are you afraid will happen if you fail?
I'm afraid I won't be able to protect Mr. Fletcher. I promised that I would, and so I had to make sure that I take out this threat one way or another.
It's worse than you fear because Elmore has instructions to poison the child.
Oh my god! I'm gonna fuck him up.
So roll with an appropriate ability. I think is it vitality? And
It feels like vitality, yeah.
with advantage because Harley is helping you.
Yeah. I don't know whether it's a blessing or a curse, but the room won't load for me, so I'm going to use my physical dice.
Sure.
Hopefully. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. Here we go. So that is a 10 in total. Oh, thank God.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So we'll come back and see what happens there.
Okay.
Helena, you plan to travel to the Void and try and rescue Penelope. Let's see. How does this move work? When you have the Cosmic Passage marked and use an object of power to attune to the Fragrant Void, what's the object of power that you're going to use?
Still plenty of blood in the basement.
Yes.
That'll do. I've got vampiric condition, so it seems appropriate.
So you don't need clues, so I don't think that move necessarily applies. Let's just have you... Okay, yeah, let's just roll the Void Walker move anyway, and it'll just give us an idea of how well and how sneakily you enter the Void. So just roll with sensitivity.
Oh, okay. 10.
Nice. So no entity from the Void will disturb you.
Well, I'm trying to find Penelope.
Mm-hmm. So you'll be able to do that. It definitely takes some time. It's almost overwhelming, the strangeness of the Void, the vast, incomprehensible eldritch entities that you see as you pass by. But you called out to Penelope before and you sensed her presence, so you can navigate your way to her that way. You eventually find her. And I think she'll say something like, I knew you would come for me. I sensed it.
I'm sorry it took so long, but I can get you back home. We'll get you back home. We'll look after you.
Good. I think something terrible is happening in London at Buckingham Palace.
My friends are dealing with it. They are very capable. We will keep you safe. Don't worry.
She says, all right. But she kind of looks like behind you, if directions like behind mean anything here. And you see it again, the hive mindish cloud of six-eyed spirits that spoke to you earlier. And you see that they are maybe watching, maybe passing across the veil to our world, and have partially manifested in the grounds at Buckingham Palace. You can't quite make out the human figures on the other side there, but you can see that the spirits are intruding in some way. What do you do?
First priority is getting Penelope back.
All right. Do you want to take her back to her home, or where are you going to try and take her back to?
Well, she can just stay here the night. Believe at least she's back in the normal mundane world or whatever.
Oh, yep, back to the doctor's house.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that again, I'll get you to roll to see if you can safely navigate out of the void.
Okay.
So, what are you afraid will happen if you fail?
Well, yeah, we'll be lost in here, and the rescue mission is a complete clusterfuck, basically.
It's worse than you fear because those spirits will like draw on your power to fuel whatever it is they're doing.
Sweet.
Roll with an appropriate ability. Got to be sensitivity.
I don't know. I was going to argue for composure because
Oh, yeah,
she's
that
got
works.
to keep her shit together.
Sure.
It's been a day. All right, let's go. 10.
All right. So we'll come back and see what happens next for you. So Jim Fletcher and Ms. Reeves, you have worked your way to the grounds of Buckingham Palace, past the armed prisoner soldiers who swarm the streets of London. And I think that we're going to start with you just kind of crouched in some bushes. You're hidden out of sight. You've breached the grounds, but now that the vast expanse of the lawns opens up before you. And D.I. Pettigrew is there. And he is, boy, am I relieved to see you too. This is well above my pay grade. And what you see in the middle of the lawn is a large scaffolding, several nooses hung from it. You are too late to save Prince Albert, the Queen's late husband, who has already been hung by his neck. Next to him stands Queen Victoria. She has not yet been hung, but there is a noose around her neck. Beside her stands Theodora. Theodora is dressed in an immaculate sapphire blue tuxedo, almost like wedding attire quality. And Tatiana, holding a large sword, is strutting around the front of the scaffold. The other thing you see is the Archbishop of Canterbury. He hangs in the air like floating, obviously not himself. His body is suspended by this like cloud of six-eyed spirits that somehow possess and speak through him. And he says loudly enough that it booms out over the whole of the gardens. If anyone knows of any reason why these two, and he gestures to Theodora and the Queen, should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever keep your peace. What do you do?
I mean, there's only one option, right? Coming out of the bushes. Now, hold on a minute here. I must protest.
Tatiana like barks at him. I told you should have let me stuff this one. Theodora, barely containing her rage, says there'll still be time for that. But the Archbishop, even though he is possessed, must observe the usual niceties and swivels towards you in the air. Who speaks?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that I was speaking, but you can't just go around murdering a man. That's not a proper way to handle a divorce.
Theodora will call out, "It is none of your concern who I murder," as if you don't have bodies on your own hands. The Queen is free to marry me now, and then when she dies, and she looks longingly at the scaffold, I will be the ruler of this nation.
I know I'm not from around here, but don't you folk have like some laws or nothing about like consent with marriage? You can't just like marry somebody; they got to agree.
Theodora just looks to the Archbishop and says, "He's wasting our time. Continue."
Oh, well, shit.
Well, hang on. I just want to check with Miss Reeves. What do you do while this goes on?
I think there's definitely a moment when Jim like gets up and goes forward that she tries to stop him, and then kind of like stays back and just mutters like "damn Americans," and we'll use that distraction to try and like sneak around the side and try and get as close to the Archbishop as possible.
All right. So I think the night move for you to sneak up nice and close without being seen.
Yeah.
What are you afraid will happen if you fail?
That Reeves will somehow be a part of this like unholy matrimony.
How is it worse than you fear? It's worse than you fear because the way that you'll be part of it is that to fully complete the ritual, some human sacrifices are required, and you will be first in line.
Okay.
So, roll with an appropriate ability. I think probably composure to sneak up.
Okay.
Something else if you prefer.
I think that makes sense. How bad is my composure? That's pretty good. And then, so my plan was basically since the Archbishop is possessed by spirits, and I have this nice big jar of ectoplasm, to like get close to him and basically throw the ectoplasm on him and hope that like it disrupts the connection somehow. So should I check that at this point?
No, I think I just want you to roll the night move
Okay.
just to get close to him without being seen, and then we'll deal with the other thing later.
So that is an 11.
Nice. All right, so we'll see what happens with that later. But Jim, you probably will notice that Miss Reeves has crept up silently close to the Archbishop. What do you do?
I'm going to attempt to shoot the rope that is holding the queen.
I love it. What are you afraid will happen if you fail?
I'm afraid I'm going to hit the queen.
It is not worse than you fear. That is that is the stake.
It's plenty worse.
Yeah. So roll. Go ahead and roll.
Yeah, that is a 14.
Nice. So you get some extra benefit or advantage as well. So I'll come back to you after the unseen, but just think about whether there's a specific benefit that you'd like, or we can think about what else. All right. So we'll do our second unseen prompt now. Miss Reeves, I would love to get you to read the second prompt and then answer it.
Yeah. So describe Act 1 in which the two children are very abusive towards the nanny. I think... So I think it's like the two kids dressed up in, their sapphire blue that's kind of been established. And the nanny is on her hands and knees, like scrubbing with like a sponge and a bucket of water around them because they've carelessly knocked something over. And one of the kids like are kind of like sitting on the couch by the nanny and puts her legs up on the nanny's back, using her as like a footrest, just not caring about her at all, and starts like talking to the other kid about what they should play next. And the other kid decides like it just rained, so there will be like worms out that they can play with, and they think, oh, that'll be a great idea. And the kids like run off stage, and you hear sloshing sounds, and then they come back on stage and they're just covered in dirt and mud and have like, I don't know, like cooked spaghetti or whatever to simulate worms, and they're just running around the area that the nanny had like just mopped up, tracking mud everywhere and kind of like throwing fake worms everywhere. And that scene basically continues on of just the nanny like frustrated, scrubbing up like right wherever the kids ran.
Nice. So, Dr. Malik, you have successfully subdued both Taggart and Elmore. Harley is sort of holding Elmore down. Poor old Elmore just sort of feebly resisting, but to no effect. Winslow, I think you've knocked his gun away from him, but he just sort of glares up at you from the spot that he's fallen.
So, Mr. Taggart, because you chose the hard way, I have another question for you. Will you leave London tonight, never to return again, or will I have to take more permanent measures with you?
Do you think is it appropriate to roll the night move for this? I'm just thinking, yeah, I guess it seems to me that it is.
Yeah, because if this is going to get violent or not, right? Okay.
Yeah. So, what are you afraid will happen if you fail?
I'm afraid if I fail to convince him, I'm going to have to murder him in cold blood.
It's worse than you fear because you will fail to murder him in cold blood. He's a tough, wily old man.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, I'm going to see what I can use for my personal stuff.
I mean, you also have Harley for advantage if you just want to.
Oh, that's true. Like, Harley can be there to back me up. Okay, here we go. Come on. Oh, sorry. There are 3 6s. So anyway, so I'm just taking 2. That's a 12.
All right. So you'll also gain some sort of benefit. Do you want to just narrate like how this plays out? So he will grudgingly agree, like, fine, I'll leave. Barely pack his stuff and just sort of slink away.
And I'll say, no, I think you should leave that right here. And there's like a specific possession that belongs to the Fletcher family that I'm going to bring back to, I'm going to bring back to Jim.
Nice.
And like, as he leaves, I'll say, Mr. Taggart, it was a pleasure doing business with you, but just know this, if you ever come back to London, you won't live long enough to regret it.
I ain't coming back to this shithole of a city. And he will shuffle away.
And I turn to the child and I'll say, that was an excellent negotiation, just so you understand, my dear.
So, Helena, you have successfully returned Penelope, set her up safely. She's got, a blanket and a tea or, whatever it is that she needs. She seems to be in good health, rattled but not fundamentally harmed by her experience. What do you want to do?
So, I know those spirits came through and they're not really supposed to be here. I also know Theodora's up to some shonky shit.
Mm-hmm. And you know that it's in the gardens at Buckingham Palace.
But I kind of feel like I have a link to the spirits that kind of came through my door or gate or whatever. So I'm going to try and banish them.
So I think that you'd need to go to Buckingham Palace. Well, I guess either Buckingham Palace or back to the Void to do that.
Yeah, crap.
Where do you see yourself going?
I'll go back to the Void. I think it'll be safer than to go into people running around the street. Oh, no, I suppose it's more dramatically nice if I'm running through the streets. Yeah, I'll run through the streets, bugger.
All right. So you'll arrive at Buckingham Palace just around the time of the last scene that we saw there. You'll see as you enter that Jim Fletcher is, well, it looks very much like he just shot at Queen Victoria, but you're not sure if that's quite what's happened. And you see that Ms. Reeves has kind of snuck up behind the Archbishop where he is. What do you do?
I'm going to since I haven't got anyone's attention, I'm going to try my rights of salt and smoke.
Go ahead and roll with sensitivity. So you're trying to banish the spirits that are possessing the Archbishop.
No.
No. Okay, sorry,
No.
mistake.
I'm going to try and banish Theodora from the city of London.
So it says you can banish a spirit or curse. I don't think you can banish a person.
Is she a person? I don't know.
She's definitely a person.
All right. Well, it's the spirits then.
Okay.
Damn it. All right. So speed sensitivity. Six. That's appropriate. So I'm going to use my last thing.
Well, hang on. We'll come back because we'll narrate a little bit, but we'll just do an
Yep.
unseen prompt before we find out what happens exactly. So, Ms. Reeves, you probably haven't noticed yet that Helena's arrived, but you're right there by the Archbishop with your ectoplasm. What do you want to do?
I mean, I really like the idea of, like, if, like, you're planning on using a mask, like, using it and banishing the spirits right as Reeves uses the ectoplasm and thinks, like, she did it. Like, just that kind of, moment of, like, Reeves thinks she was able to banish the spirits, and, like, maybe that means she's special like Helena, and then looks over and sees you there, and you're like, oh.
I don't know if you can put on a mask to improve someone else's dice roll. I don't know if that works in the rules as written.
But I think it's the fiction, right? That when Helena puts on the mask, it will turn that into a success.
Yeah.
And so I think
Right.
Joel's asking for the timing to line up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Sorry, I misunderstood.
You're good.
So, does that mean that Helena throws the ectoplasm just as the spirits are banished?
Yeah. Or yeah, Reeves does, like, thinking that she was able to be the one to banish him.
Right. And then what do you do? Theodora is still up there with the Queen. The Archbishop is probably falling to the ground.
I think she will. Let's see, what can I'll do? She'll start climbing the scaffolding to get closer. Like, she'll kind of mutter to herself, like, Jim's the one that's always been good with a shot, and kind of, like, puts away her derringer and pulls out her cane, and then starts, like, climbing the scaffolding.
Okay.
Get up closer.
Nice. So we'll come back and find out what happens there. But Jim Fletcher, you were entitled to an extra benefit from your 12 plus. Did you think about what you want there?
So I don't know if you'll allow this, but I would very much like Dr. Malik to arrive in time to be useful.
I think that totally works. So does Dr. Malik just appear by your side in this moment?
Yeah, almost like a one-time use of My Person Friday.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I think when Malik shows up, he's like, I see, Mr. Fletcher. You've been very rude and started the festivities without me. I'll find it in myself to forgive you.
Yeah. And as you say this, Tatiana has jumped down from the scaffolding and is advancing on the two of you with a big sword, waving in the air. What do you do, Jim?
I am going to pull out Obert Fig's butcher knife. Nice. And, well, it looks like we got ourselves an old-fashioned duel here. And I will sheath my pistol. Or holster my pistol.
I think that she will match you. She will sheath her sword and draw a knife, so it's more of a fair fight.
Love it.
So, this is certainly something risky. What are you afraid will happen if you fail?
That this is just going to be an awful duel. Like, it's going to be terrible and bloody, and that I'll lose.
It's worse than you fear because her goal is not to kill you, but to permanently paralyze you and keep you as a pet.
That's fucking terrible.
So go ahead and roll with vitality, I guess.
Yeah, what's my vitality? 2, 1. Great. So I'm marking Autofix Butcher Knife here.
Yeah. Ooh. All right, so we'll see what becomes of that in just a moment.
Jamie, that's a 5. Since I don't think you can see the dice roller.
No, I keep trying to load the room and it refuses to. I've tried like 3 different browsers.
All right, so Dr. Malik, could I get you to read and answer the third unseen prompt?
Yes. Okay. So, let's see. Describe Act 2 in which, push past her limits, the nanny murders her bratty charges. How does the audience respond? And I think there's a moment when like they harass her in her sleep, demanding to be fed, demanding to be cared for. And let me just double check our lines and veils. Yeah, because we have harm to children behind a veil, so I'm just going to veil it.
Sure.
I think what happens is we just see the actress turn to the audience, and like her hand like goes over like the ingredients in the cupboard, and very dramatically like stops over this huge bottle that has like this skull and crossbones on it. Like it's very almost cartoonish. And she turns to the audience and places a finger over her mouth, and then pours in a liberal amount of poison into the food. And I think like there's this dark comedy aspect to it where the children talk about how different it tastes, and the nanny says, "Yes, I made sure to put in more of my love into this meal for you, my children." Nice. And as it happens on stage, I think the audience like whoops and cheers as the children meet their demise.
All right. So you're all on the lawn at Buckingham Palace. I guess we'll start with Helena, because you rolled a miss on the rites of salt and smoke to banish the spirit, but then I understand that you are going to put on a mask. Is that right?
Yep.
What's the mask that you're going to put on?
It's the one where I'm physically destroyed.
Fuck.
So what I had in mind was, I'm thinking, because she had like Fey allies and stuff we suspected, so I'm trying to sort of dispel or banish all other planet entities in this area. So I'm cutting both my hands and I'm drawing sort of symbols on the thing, and her head's slowly turning as she realizes what I'm doing. And I slam my hand down as those spirits start to go. And I think maybe like she flicks a knife or something, and when it hits me, my form goes up in her blue flame, her sapphire blue flame.
God. But it does work though, so it's definitely going to take effect. The complication of being killed, I think, will cover the complications for the 79 result. But yeah, the magic works. The spirits are banished, as we saw before. All of you sense, not just that cloud of spirits, but more generally that Buckingham Palace is returning to our world, that an opening onto the Fey realm is closing. Who will? I guess none of you will even notice that Helena's done that, because she's like behind where all of you are standing. So, although the blue flame, I guess, is
the bright blue flame, and I'm screaming as I'm burning. So
okay. So all of you realize that Helena has just made the ultimate sacrifice. Now, Jim Fletcher, the duel is not going well for you. You certainly get in a couple of good shots. You have Tatiana bleeding. She seems to like it a little. She licks up some of the blood. Um, but finally, she sinks her blade deep into your abdomen, uh, tearing a huge gash in your stomach. Um,
Yeah,
and
that mask is going on.
so what's the last safe mask that you can wear? Is that right?
Yeah, narrate a flashback showing the incident that caused you to go on the run. And so as Jim is bleeding, and we'll say he's kind of collapsed onto his knees, we cut back to that, Pacific Northwest United States, tall trees, smell of earth, rainy kind of temperate rainforest, ferns and such, and we see a bear that we know to be Jim Fletcher stalking up to a village, like a settler village, and kind of sniffs the air, and then just charges, and kind of off camera, like maybe like really quick cuts, we see like slashing paws and like breaking down doors and crashing through like log cabin style buildings and stuff, hastily, kind of a new settlement, and everything kind of fades to black. And as we wake up at dawn, we see a sunrise, and like a naked Jim Fletcher is just surrounded by gore and corpses, and realizes what he's done.
Awesome. So that brings you up to a 7 to 9. So that means that you did it or hold steady. So the complication is going to be the condition badly cut. So you definitely got hurt in that battle. But do you want to describe how you finally take out Tatiana?
Yeah, I think as he's down on his knees, she gets close, and instead of licking her blood, she leans in and licks a bit of Jim's blood, kind of basking in her apparent win. And with that, he's dropped the blade, and just with his hands, like a bear, chokes her out.
Nice. So, Dr. Malik, you see Jim take out Tatiana. You see that Miss Reeves has climbed up onto the scaffold with Theodora. You can see in the shadows that there are other figures trying to climb up onto the scaffold as well. What do you do?
Yeah, I need to help Miss Reeves. So we're trying to, if I understand it, just take out our mastermind. Is that right? That's the goal.
I guess so. I mean, rescuing the queen as well. If you
Right.
want.
Ooh, how is the queen right now? I thought.
So she's no longer. She no longer has a noose around her neck, or at least it's no longer attached to the gallows. But she's still standing up on the scaffold. Her hands are bound behind her.
I think what I'm going to do is I will go for the queen because it'll mean distracting our mastermind so that Miss Reeves can get a better shot, I think, is what I'm trying to do.
So when you say going for the queen, are you going to like jump up onto the scaffold, or there is a trapdoor under the queen's feet that is meant to like open to break her neck when she hangs, but now that the noose is disconnected, you could just drop her down through the trapdoor.
Yeah, I'm going to attempt to get that trapdoor to work, catch her in my arms, and then and then carry her off. But I mean, if that'll work. But that's the.
What are you afraid will happen if you fail?
I'm afraid that it won't be enough to distract our mastermind. Like that's really what I want to get her like angry enough so that Miss Reeves gets that shot in. But yeah.
So it's worse than you fear because the queen will break her neck if she falls badly, even though she's no longer tight.
Yeah.
The next scaffolding. So I think it makes sense that this would be reason or maybe composure.
Yeah, I feel like reason because I need to make sure I get it just right.
Yeah.
Just right. I'm also gonna roll with advantage. I'm gonna say like Mr. White is assisting me.
Mhm.
And Malik will say something like, "You're not Miss Reeves, but you'll have to do in this situation, Mr. White." Okay, here we go. Reason +3. Oh, okay. Thank God for the advantage. That's a 4 + 5 + 3. What is that in total? I can't do math right now.
Four,
8, 9,
4 and
10,
5
11,
is
12.
9.
Yeah.
And 3 is 12. Oh, so it's
Okay.
another 12. So the queen is in your arms. The Theodora is distracted. Miss Reeves. Theodora faces you across the gallows. As the queen vanishes through the trapdoor, she lets out this howl. And screams, "No! It was supposed to be my night, and you've all ruined it." And she advances menacingly towards you.
Yeah, and Reeves will say, "Dear, this is just another Thursday," and then like pulls out her cane, and I kind of imagine like the queen fell like right in between the two of them, and then they like start to advance on each other. And we'll just use all of the moves that Jim Fletcher taught her. Like I assume the fight pretty much looks like a reflection of the fight Jim had with Tatiana, where instead of like the butcher knife, Miss Reeves is using like her cane and is kind of doing the same like sweeps that Jim taught her, and the same like jabbing moves and that sort of thing.
So when Theodora realizes you can actually fight, she'll say, "Now, it doesn't have to be like this. Join me. Forget your friends. We can still do this, and you can rule by my side."
I'm trying to look at the items that I have. It is very tempting to say yes, but I think she says something like, oh God, I don't know how bad I want to be. I'm tempted to like. I think she says something like, "Dr. Malik." We'll say like Dr. Malik can't raise a child on his own, and then tries to like push Theodora off the edge of the scaffolding.
What are you afraid will happen if you fail?
That basically she'll survive the fall, and it'll put her that much closer to like Dr. Malik and the Queen.
It's worse than you fear because, Theodora's guards and soldiers are all over the grounds, and one of them will kill the child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead and roll with, I guess, vitality.
Yeah. And then I'm just looking to see if I have any items to try and make this better. Nothing that I can reasonably justify. So I will just roll.
Well, you have the witch's blood. You could argue that you're going to smash it against
I
it.
will not need the witch's blood.
Did not
Oh,
need
we
it.
won!
That would be a
We
good
won!
idea. It was a 12.
All right. So, do you want to just narrate it? So, you definitely knock her off. Do you kill her? Do you capture her? Like, what's the end of this scene?
I mean, it's a very like, what's the movie? I think it's Sparta or whatever, where like just the big kick and like Theodora flies back and like everything goes slow motion. Her sapphire blue gowns like just slowly ripple in the air as like the scene is less focused on Reeves or anyone else and more on Theodora, and it's her kind of point of view flying back from the scaffolding that's starting to kind of like collapse a little bit and like, you know, going wrong. She's kind of looking at like the grounds of Westminster where all the spirits that she had helping her were banished by Helena in her final act. And as she's slowly falling down, she kind of like hits the ground and her vision just ends on Tatiana's corpse by Jim Fletcher.
Nice. Helena or Blake, can I get you to read and answer the last of the unseen prompts?
Okay. Hang on. What was that one? Nanny gets her to come up and so final thing. I think the nanny sort of lied about what she did, and then, you know, the parents believed her and they're upset or whatever. And then the kids sort of come back as ghosts and they do all their usual tricks, but it's nastier. Like they trip her over so that she bumps her head and she keeps having nastier and nastier accidents that the kids are doing their old tricks but amplified, and yeah, until she bleeds to death with a lot of injuries.
All right. And that will be the end of our game of the Between. We'll do a quick round of epilogues, but you have.
I want one
saved
thing.
Oh, you want one thing?
Jim Fletcher picks up his hat from Tatiana and brushes it off and puts it on.
Nice. So, I would just like to have a quick round of epilogues where we hear what becomes of your character after the game, or for Blake, you know, something about your sort of legacy or memory, or, you know, whatever sort of after scene you'd like. I believe that Dr. Malik and Reeves, neither of you have marked any of the masks of the. Wait, what are they called?
Future?
Masks of the
Is that-
future.
Yeah.
So that means that you can retire to safety, if that's what you'd like to do. But we'll start with Jim Fletcher. What's a little epilogue scene that you'd like to tell us about?
I think after a few days, perhaps, of recovery from the wounds, perhaps treated by Dr. Malik a little bit, one day they wake up and he's gone. And on Dr. Malik's bed, there is the little kitschy American wax doll. On Reeves' bed is the book of animal biology that she had drawn in. She'd drawn all the hats on the grizzly bears. And there's just a little note that says thank you. And on what used to be Helena's bed is the pistol.
Nice.
And then we see him just riding north, kind of towards Scotland.
Cool. Miss Reeves.
So I think it's a scene of the small house that Helena had gifted to Miss Reeves. And it's the camera's basically going from, like, let's say the second story kind of throughout the house. And there's rooms set up for everyone for, like, if they ever want to stay there. So there's, you know, Jim Fletcher's room. It's like all of the most stereotypical American stuff that Reeves can think of. Like there's, you know, some scotch there. You know, one of those like raccoon hats because like she thinks it'll remind him of home or something, and just like very overdone stereotype of like what Americans would be. And then also probably like the holy symbol of Mach by the bedside, like just in case. There's a Helena's room that she had said she would keep made up for her, still there. And, you know, kind of like some of the books on the occult that like maybe they had accumulated or salvage from Hargrave's house. And then also like the protection amulets that she still had of Helena's on the bedside table. And then a room for Dr. Al-Kabir. And it's like pristine, a perfect like recreation of Dr. Al Kabir's room in Hargrave House. Basically, like all of the personal stuff that like she knows he likes, like his favorite tea, kind of like ready to be made, like his favorite, biscuits that are like always fresh, like at the table, that sort of thing. And then the camera keeps winding down to the basement, and then that's where you see Dr. Reeves, and she's kind of like monologuing to herself, and it's getting more and more unhinged. And she's talking about how all you've brought is trouble. Like she thought Dr. Malik learned, the first time that like you're no good for him, that sort of thing. And she's basically putting a bunch of like weapons into like a duffel bag to like go out into the night. And when she walks away from the camera, you see like a picture of the child with like a red circle around him and like an X through his face. And that's where like Dr. Reeves goes bad.
Incredible. Dr. Malik.
Yeah, I think it starts with Dr. Malik writing a letter, and we can hear his voice reading out loud. Mr. Fletcher, I'm not sure if this letter will reach you. I'm not sure if you lied about how we would be able to reach you in the future. But should that be the case, I would like you to know that even if my child and I can no longer be hunters, I will ensure that the Hargrave house and its legacy will endure. And there's a montage of like blueprints and everything as Dr. Malik spends a considerable amount of fortune that did not belong to him but once belonged to the mastermind in order to rebuild the Hargrave house. And once it ends, there's like another, we see like as Malik like folds up the letter, there's another letter to Miss Reeves that Malik has been trying to start over and over again, to write over and over again, but he can't quite manage to do it. And Malik turns around and says, right, and says to the child, I will make sure to mail this myself, but please bring in the new hunters. We must begin training immediately.
Nice. And Blake, do you want to narrate some sort of epilogue?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe Jim Reeves is sort of at a campfire in the north in the hills of Scotland or something, and there's sort of a ghostly bear that comes and sits at the campfire, and it's got Helena's eyes.
Nice. Well, that seems like an awesome thing to finish up on. I'm going to end the recording, and then would love to do a quick, maybe not stars and wishes, but at least just some